The debris field stretched for thousands of kilometers, a graveyard of metal and broken dreams. Counselor Brevin pressed his three-fingered hand against the cracked viewport, watching another piece of what used to be the Aldrine defense platform tumble past. Somewhere below, on the planet his people had called home for 6,000 years, Krethian soldiers walked their streets like they owned them. Because they did. 3 months. That was how long it took for the Krethian Empire to break everything the Aldrine had built. Their democracy, their economy, their hope. The warships came first, blocking out the stars. Then came the demands. Give us your mining rights. Give us your production facilities. Give us your children to work in our factories. The Galactic Council met 14 times to discuss the situation. They used words like concerning and troubling and unacceptable. They formed committees. They drafted strongly worded statements. They did absolutely nothing while Brevin watched his people become slaves in their own homes. That was when he remembered the old files, ancient data from when the Aldrine first started exploring beyond their system, contact reports with species nobody talked to anymore. Most were extinct. Some just disappeared, but one caught his attention, a species that called themselves humans, from a planet they named Earth. The report was strange. It said humans had once enslaved each other, bought and sold their own kind like property. The Aldrine scholars who wrote the report found it horrifying, but what came next was even stranger. The humans stopped. They fought wars against their own slave traders, burned their slave markets to the ground, hunted down anyone who tried to restart the practice. The report ended with a warning. These humans are dangerous. They understand cruelty because they lived it. They understand justice because they chose it. Recommend limited contact. Brevin violated about 40 different protocols when he sent that message. Used emergency channels that were supposed to be reserved for natural disasters. Routed it through ancient relay stations that barely worked anymore. He had no idea if anyone would receive it. No idea if they would care. He sent it anyway. A simple message: the Aldrine are enslaved. The Krethian Empire has taken our freedom. The Galactic Council will not help us. We are asking you, please. For 2 weeks, nothing happened. Brevin started to think the message got lost in dead space. Or maybe the humans were extinct too. Or maybe they just did not care about some alien species they never met. Then his console lit up, not with a message, with a proximity alert. Unknown vessels just dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. The automated systems tried to identify them, tried to match their energy signatures against the database. Every query came back with the same result: unknown configuration, unknown technology, unknown origin. Brevin pulled up the long-range sensors. What was left of them anyway? The Krethians had smashed most of the Aldrine monitoring equipment during the invasion, but enough pieces still worked to give him a basic scan. 15 ships, maybe 20. The sensors kept glitching because the vessels were doing something weird with their power output, running cold, hiding their real capabilities. They moved with perfect coordination, spreading out into a formation that looked almost casual but put them in position to hit the Krethian fleet from multiple angles. The Krethian patrol ships noticed them too. Commander Vecthos, the officer in charge of orbital security, sent the standard challenge. Identify yourselves. State your business. This system is under Krethian protection. The unknown ships did not respond. They just kept moving, getting closer, still running quiet. Vecthos sent another message, this one less polite: turn back now or you will be fired upon. This is your only warning. Still nothing. The ships glided through space like sharks in dark water. Brevin noticed something else. Every single vessel had weapons ports, lots of them. These were not cargo haulers or exploration craft. These were warships, built by someone who knew exactly how to kill. Vecthos was getting nervous. Brevin could hear it in his transmissions to the Krethian fleet. Wake up the battle group. Get all ships to combat readiness. We have possible hostiles approaching. The Krethian warships powered up their shields, charged their weapons, moved into defensive formation around the planet. 37 ships total, enough firepower to crack a moon. The Krethians looked at those 15 unknown vessels and they felt confident. Brevin knew better. He ran the scan again, looked at the energy readings that kept spiking and falling. Those ships were not running cold because they were weak. They were running cold because they were hiding. The power he was detecting, those little glimpses when their systems fluctuated, those numbers were insane. One of those ships put out more energy than the entire Krethian battle group combined. High Merchant Tallies called him. The old Aldrine leader sounded tired. Brevin, what is happening up there? Are those ships council peacekeepers? No, Brevin said quietly. I do not think the council sent anyone. Then who? I think, Brevin said slowly, watching the unknown ships take up attack positions, I think those are humans. Tallies went silent. Then he said something that Brevin would remember for the rest of his life. Did we just trade one conqueror for another? Brevin did not have an answer. He just watched the sensors, watched those ships move into final positions, watched the Krethian fleet realize too late that this was not a negotiation. The lead ship finally sent a transmission, not to the Krethians, to Brevin, to the Aldrine station. The voice was human, female, cold as the space between stars. Counselor Brevin, this is Admiral Patricia Hayes of the Earth Defense Fleet. We received your message. Clear your people from orbital space. This will not take long. The channel closed. Brevin opened station-wide communications with shaking hands. All Aldrine personnel, evacuate to the inner habitat modules immediately. Seal all exterior sections. This is not a drill. He stayed at his post, watching, waiting. The Krethian fleet formed up, powered weapons, prepared to destroy these arrogant newcomers who dared challenge an empire. Then the human ships stopped hiding what they were. Every vessel lit up like a newborn star. Weapons systems that had been sleeping roared to life. Shields snapped into place with power readings that made the sensors scream. And from each ship, fighters began to launch. Dozens of them, hundreds. Vecthos sent one more message. Final warning, retreat or be destroyed. Admiral Hayes did not bother responding. She just gave the order that changed everything. Her voice came through on every frequency. Cold, clear, absolutely certain. All ships, weapons free, show them what mercy costs. The human fleet opened fire, and Brevin understood with perfect clarity that the galaxy was about to learn a lesson it would never forget. Lieutenant Yuki Tanaka felt the fighter shudder as it launched from the carrier bay. Around her, 200 other pilots did the same, pouring into space like angry hornets from a kicked nest. Her cockpit displays showed the Krethian fleet ahead, big and stupid, and completely unprepared for what was about to happen. Good. She checked her weapons, missiles armed, railguns loaded, targeting systems green. The fighter wing formed up in perfect formation, decades of training turning individuals into a single killing machine. Nobody talked. Nobody needed to. They all knew the mission. They all knew what the Krethians had done. The enemy ships were still powering up their shields when the first wave hit. Yuki picked her target, a Krethian destroyer that was trying to turn its broadside toward the human capital ships. Too slow. Way too slow. She armed 2 missiles and fired. The Krethian point defense systems tried to track them, tried to shoot them down. Failed. Both missiles punched through the thin shields and detonated against the hull. Atmosphere vented from a dozen holes. The destroyer listed to one side, engines flickering. Yuki did not wait to watch it die. She was already moving to the next target. Around her, the battle wing carved through the Krethian formation like knives through paper. Every pilot had trained for this. Every pilot had volunteered for this. Some of them, like Yuki, had family who died when raiders hit the outer colonies. Some just believed that slavery was wrong. All of them were very, very good at their jobs. A Krethian cruiser tried to run. Yuki watched 3 human fighters chase it down. They hit the engines first, crippling it. Then they methodically destroyed every weapon system. Then they just left it floating there, helpless. While they moved to the next target, the message was clear. You do not get to run. You do not get to fight. You just get to die or surrender, and we are not accepting surrenders today. Admiral Hayes sat in her command chair aboard the dreadnought Unforgiving, watching the tactical display with cold satisfaction. The Krethian fleet was falling apart. 37 ships against 15, and it was not even close. Humans had been fighting wars since they learned to pick up rocks. They got very good at it over the millennia. The Krethians were learning that lesson the hard way. Her tactical officer called out targets: destroyer down, cruiser disabled, frigate destroyed. Hayes listened to the litany of destruction and felt nothing. She had watched the intelligence reports, seen what the Krethians did to the Aldrine, seen the labor camps, the punishment facilities, the re-education centers for children. Commander Vecthos tried one more time. He broadcast on all channels, his voice desperate. We surrender, cease fire, we surrender. Hayes looked at her communications officer, a young man named Ryan who had lost his sister to slavers 5 years ago. Should I respond, Admiral? Hayes thought about it for exactly 2 seconds. No, they did not ask the Aldrine if they wanted to surrender before they invaded. Continue firing. The Krethian flagship took a broadside from 3 human cruisers at once. The shields collapsed. The hull buckled. Secondary explosions rippled along its length. It broke in half, both pieces tumbling away into the dark. One Krethian ship tried to escape, not to retreat to a safe distance, to actually run, jump to faster than light and abandon the battle completely. Hayes watched it charge its jump drive and she smiled. It was not a nice smile. Weapons, she said calmly, target that ship. I want it disabled before it jumps. The weapons officer hesitated. Admiral, at this range, if we miss we might hit the planet. Hayes turned to look at him. Her eyes were like ice. I did not ask about the risks. I gave you an order. Yes, Admiral. The weapons officer launched a spread of missiles, smart weapons with dedicated targeting AI. They caught the fleeing ship just as its jump drive reached full charge. The engines exploded in a brilliant flash. The ship went dark, tumbling through space. Hayes opened a channel to that ship specifically. This is Admiral Hayes. You tried to run. I want you to float there and think about what the Aldrine wanted to do when your empire invaded. Float there and think about how they did not get that choice. Then I want you to send a message to your homeworld. Tell them what happens when you take slaves. She closed the channel, turned back to the tactical display. The battle was almost over, 17 minutes since the first shot. The Krethian orbital fleet was gone, just debris and disabled ships and emergency beacons screaming into the void. A new contact appeared on the sensors, small ship, unarmed, moving toward the human fleet with a strange, jerky trajectory. Hayes pulled up the identification. Galactic Council observer vessel. They sent someone to watch. Let them approach, Hayes said. I want them to see this. The small ship came alongside the Unforgiving. A single alien on board. Seeker Quarren, according to the manifest. Some kind of council bureaucrat sent to monitor the situation. Hayes let him dock. Let him come aboard. Let him walk through her ship and see the human crew preparing for the next phase. Quarren was tall and thin, with too many joints in his arms and legs. He looked at Hayes with large, liquid eyes that seemed permanently sad. Admiral, he said in surprisingly good English, I must protest this action. The Krethian vessels attempted to surrender. Galactic law requires you to accept and provide quarter. Hayes leaned back in her chair. Tell me, Seeker Quarren, where was galactic law when the Krethians invaded the Aldrine? Where were the council observers then? Quarren shifted uncomfortably. The council was working through proper diplomatic channels. Hayes stood up, walked to the viewport. looked down at the Aldrin planet below. For 3 months. You worked through channels for 3 months while people were enslaved, while children were taken from their families, while an entire civilization was ground under the boot of an empire. The Council does not have military forces, Quarren said quietly. We rely on diplomacy and economic pressure. Hayes turned to face him. Then you rely on weakness. You let monsters like the Krethians do whatever they want because you are too afraid or too principled to stop them. So do not talk to me about galactic law. We are not part of your council. We are not bound by your rules. We are here because someone asked for help and we actually gave it. Quarren straightened, tried to look authoritative. The council will sanction Earth for this action. Hayes laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. Go ahead, sanction us. We will be too busy actually helping people to notice. She gestured to the viewport, the planet. The Krethians still have ground forces down there. Thousands of soldiers in garrisons across the planet. My Marines are launching in 10 minutes. You can watch if you want. See what real justice looks like. Quarren stared at her. You cannot be serious. A ground invasion without negotiation, without terms. Hayes walked past him toward the door. Watch me. Then go back to your council and tell them something. Tell them that humanity remembers slavery. We remember what it cost to end it on our own world. And we will never, ever let it stand when we see it happening to others. She left Quarren standing there. Went to the launch bay where Colonel Reeves and his Marines were boarding drop ships. 2,000 soldiers. The best humanity had. Many of them volunteers who specifically requested this mission when they heard what the Krethians had done. Reeves saluted when he saw her. Admiral, we are ready. Hayes nodded. Rules of engagement. Reeves smiled. It was the smile of a man who had been waiting for this. Protect Aldrin civilians. Neutralize all Krethian military forces. Accept surrenders only after all weapons are secured. And if they use civilians as shields, then we show them why human soldiers train for urban warfare. We will get the civilians out, and the Krethians will learn that hiding behind innocence does not work on us. Hayes clapped him on the shoulder. Good hunting, Colonel. The drop ships launched. Yuki and her wing provided escort, keeping Krethian ground fire suppressed. The ships entered atmosphere in tight formation, burning through the sky like falling stars. On the surface, in the Aldrin capital city, Krethian soldiers looked up and saw them coming. Some tried to run. Some tried to fight. None of them understood yet that running would not save them, and fighting would only make it worse. The humans were here, and mercy was not on the manifest. The dropship hit atmosphere with enough force to rattle Colonel David Reeves' teeth. He barely noticed. His eyes were locked on the tactical display showing the Aldrin capital city below. 200,000 civilians, 15 Krethian garrison points, 3 labor camps on the outskirts where they kept Aldrin children separated from their families. Those camps were going first. Reeves had seen the intelligence reports. Read the testimonies from Aldrin refugees who escaped the initial invasion. Watched video footage of Krethian soldiers dragging children as young as 5 years old away from screaming parents. The Krethians called it labor education. Everyone else called it exactly what it was. Slavery. Child slavery. The drop ships split into attack formations, half headed for the garrisons, half headed for the camps. Reeves was with the camp assault group. He had specifically requested it. Some of his officers thought he was being too emotional. They were probably right. He did not care. The first camp came into view. High walls, guard towers, electrified fences. Reeves recognized the design. Humans had built places like this once, a long time ago, before they learned better, before they decided that some things were so wrong that you had to burn them out of existence. The drop ship's weapon systems locked onto the guard towers. Target confirmed. Weapons free. The towers exploded in sequence. Guards fell or jumped. The drop ship did not slow down. It crashed through the fence like it was made of paper, landing hard in the middle of the compound. The rear ramp dropped before the ship fully settled. Reeves was first out. His Marines followed in perfect formation. They moved through the camp like a surgical team, every movement practiced, every action precise. They had trained for this specific scenario for 6 weeks before the mission launched. Krethian guards tried to organize a defense, tried to use their plasma rifles to hold back the assault. They might as well have tried to stop a tsunami with their hands. Human combat armor absorbed the plasma shots. Human rifles fired back with kinetic rounds that punched through Krethian body armor like it was cloth. One guard tried to grab an Aldrine child, tried to use the kid as a shield. Reeves shot him in the head from 30 meters away. The guard dropped. The child stood there, frozen in shock. A human medic ran forward, scooped up the kid and carried him to safety. All in about 5 seconds. The firefight lasted less than 3 minutes. Every Krethian guard was down, most dead. A few unconscious from shock grenades. Reeves did not care which. He keyed his radio. Camp 1 secure. Begin evacuation. Human medics and support personnel flooded into the camp. They brought blankets, food, medical supplies, translators who spoke Aldrine. The children stared at them with huge eyes. Some cried. Some were too traumatized to react at all. The humans worked with quiet efficiency, getting them on transport ships, taking them somewhere safe, somewhere far away from anyone who would ever hurt them again. Reeves walked through the barracks where the children had been kept. Rows of metal bunks, thin blankets, a single communal bathroom. The walls had marks on them, scratches where the kids had tried to count the days, messages in Aldrine script. Reeves could not read the language, but he understood the sentiment. We want to go home. Please let us go home. Where are our parents? He found himself standing in front of one wall, breathing hard. His fists clenched so tight his knuckles turned white inside his gloves. A voice behind him spoke softly. "Sir, we need to move." Reeves turned. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Harris, stood there. She was looking at him with concern. He realized he had been staring at that wall for almost a minute. "Yeah," he said. "Yeah, let's move." The other 2 camps fell just as quickly. Total time from first landing to all children secured was 18 minutes. 0 human casualties. 47 dead Krethian guards. Reeves considered it a bargain. While the camp assaults were happening, the rest of the human force hit the garrisons. The Krethians had fortified positions, heavy weapons, prepared defenses. They thought they were ready for a fight. They were not ready for humans. The assault teams did not bother with conventional tactics. They used breaching charges to blow holes in walls, combat drones to clear rooms, neural disruptors to incapacitate enemies without destroying infrastructure. The Aldrine would need these buildings when this was over. The humans made sure they would be intact. In the main garrison, the Krethian commander, a general named Drakes, tried to organize a last stand. He barricaded himself in the command center with 50 of his best soldiers. They had enough ammunition to hold out for days, enough supplies to wait for reinforcement. Reeves did not give them the chance. He collapsed the only entrance with precisely placed explosives. Then he pumped sedative gas into the ventilation system. The gas was a human invention, completely non-lethal, completely effective. Within 20 minutes, every Krethian in the command center was unconscious. Human engineers cut through the debris. Marines secured the sleeping soldiers. Drakes woke up in zip-tie restraints with a human rifle pointed at his head. He tried to demand prisoner of war status, tried to cite galactic conventions. Reeves looked down at him. "You do not get to cite conventions after what you did here. You do not get rights. You get to be cargo." "What are you going to do with us?" Drakes asked. His translator made his voice sound mechanical, emotionless, but Reeves could hear the fear underneath. "You are going home," Reeves said. "We are sending every single one of you back to the Krethian Empire. Let your people see what happens when you take slaves. Let them see you come home in disgrace. You cannot do this. The council will never allow it. Reeves smiled. It was not a nice smile. The council is welcome to try and stop us. By nightfall, every Krethian garrison on the planet was neutralized. Every soldier, officer, and administrator was in human custody. The Aldrine watched from their homes as human soldiers walked the streets, securing the city. Some Aldrine cheered, some cried, some just stared in disbelief. High Merchant Tallies tried to contact the human command, tried to thank them, tried to ask what came next. He got a recorded message. The Aldrine are free. Rebuild your world. We will make sure nobody bothers you again. Counselor Brevin found Reeves in the central square. The human colonel was supervising the loading of Krethian prisoners onto transport ships, thousands of them, all being packed into cargo holds like livestock. The irony was not lost on anyone. Colonel Brevin said carefully, "What you did today, what you are doing, I am grateful. We all are, but I have to ask, what happens next?" Reeves watched another group of prisoners being loaded. "Next we take these prisoners to the Krethian homeworld. We drop them off. We make sure the entire Krethian Empire understands what happens when they take slaves. Then we go home. And if the Krethians come back?" Reeves turned to look at him. His eyes were hard, cold, absolutely certain. "Then we will come back too, and next time we will not be so gentle." Brevin felt a chill run through him. This was gentle. Reeves seemed to read his thoughts. "We could have glassed this planet from orbit, could have killed every Krethian the moment we arrived. Instead, we risked our lives to save yours while minimizing casualties. Yes, Counselor, this was gentle. This was mercy. The Krethians just do not understand that yet." He walked away, leaving Brevin standing there. Above them, the human fleet maintained orbit, silent, watchful, waiting. The Aldrine were free, but they had learned something troubling. Freedom sometimes came at the end of a gun, delivered by people who understood violence better than anyone else. And the galaxy was about to learn that humanity could be the kindest saviors or the most terrifying enemies. It all depended on which side of their mercy you stood. The transport ships hung in orbit above the Krethian homeworld like iron clouds. Inside their holds, 15,000 Krethian soldiers, officers, and administrators waited in silence. Some prayed, some cursed, some just stared at the walls and wondered how everything went so wrong so fast. General Draki sat in the cargo hold of the lead transport, surrounded by his former command staff. They were all stripped of armor, weapons, and rank insignia, just prisoners now, property being returned to sender. The humans had taken everything except their basic uniforms and their shame. The intercom crackled to life. Admiral Hayes' voice filled the hold. "Attention Krethian personnel. In 10 minutes we will begin releasing you to your homeworld. You will be sent down in escape pods. I suggest you use this time to think about what you did on the Aldrine homeworld. Think about the families you destroyed, the children you enslaved, the lives you ruined. Then think about how lucky you are that we are sending you home alive." The transmission ended. Drakis looked around at his officers. Some of them looked angry, most looked terrified. One of them, a young commander named Skrell, spoke up. "They are humiliating us, sending us home like criminals." "We are criminals," Draki said quietly. "What we did there, what the Empire ordered us to do, it was wrong." Skrell stared at him. "You cannot be serious. We followed orders. We served the Empire." "I have been serving the Empire for 30 years, Draki said. "I have fought in 12 campaigns, conquered 6 worlds. I told myself we were bringing civilization to primitive species, bringing order to chaos. But what we did on the Aldrine homeworld was not conquest. It was slavery, and the humans made us pay for it." "The Empire will retaliate," another officer said. "They have to. We cannot let this stand." Draki shook his head. "The Empire will do nothing, because the humans sent us home alive. Alive and humiliated, but alive. If they had killed us, the Empire could call for revenge, could rally the people for war. But this, sending us home in disgrace, this is a message, and the message is that humans do not fear us. The escape pods started launching, groups of 50 at a time dropping toward the planet below. Drakes was in the final wave. As his pod fell through atmosphere, he looked through the small viewport. The Krethian capital city spread below, millions of people going about their lives, completely unaware of what was about to happen. The pods landed in the main military spaceport. Emergency systems activated. Doors opened. Drakes stepped out into sunlight for the first time in days. Around him, thousands of other Krethian soldiers did the same. They looked around, confused. Lost, like they did not know where they were. Krethian military police surrounded the landing area. Not to help, to contain. The Empire did not know what to do with them yet, could not decide if they were heroes or failures, so they just kept them corralled while the bureaucrats figured it out. Drakes noticed something else. Cameras, lots of cameras. The media was here, broadcasting everything. The return of the Aldrine occupation force, except instead of returning in victory, they were returning in disgrace, without weapons, without honor, just soldiers who got beaten by a species most Krethians had never heard of. A data packet hit his personal communicator, message from Admiral Hayes, sent to every single returned soldier. Drakes opened it. Inside was a complete record of everything he did during the occupation, every order he gave, every action he authorized, complete with video footage, audio recordings, testimony from Aldrine civilians. He scrolled through it, felt sick, seeing it all laid out like this, documented, preserved. There was no way to deny it, no way to claim they were just following orders. The evidence was overwhelming. The same data packet was sent to the Krethian government, to the media, to the galactic community. The humans made sure everyone knew exactly what happened on the Aldrine homeworld. The Krethian High Command called an emergency meeting. Drakes was summoned. He walked into the chamber, still wearing his stained uniform. The High Counselors sat in judgment, looking down at him from their elevated seats. General Drakes, the first counselor, began. Explain what happened. Drakes stood at attention. We invaded the Aldrine homeworld as ordered. We established occupation. We began resource extraction and labor programs. Then the humans arrived. They destroyed our fleet. They neutralized our ground forces. They evacuated all Aldrine children from labor facilities. They captured every Krethian on the planet and sent us home. How many casualties did we suffer? 1,700 dead, mostly in the initial orbital battle, maybe 200 more in the ground fighting. The rest of us were taken prisoner and sent home. The first counselor leaned forward. So you are telling me that a species we barely knew existed destroyed an entire battle group and defeated 15,000 ground troops with minimal losses? Yes, counselor. How is that possible? Because they are very good at war, Drakes said simply. Better than us. Better than anyone I have ever seen. They have been fighting each other for thousands of years. They have mastered violence in ways we cannot imagine, and they used all of that knowledge against us. The council chamber erupted in argument. Some counselors demanded immediate retaliation. Some wanted to open negotiations. Some wanted to pretend it never happened. Drakes stood there, listening to them argue, and realized something. The Empire was afraid. For the first time in generations, the Krethian Empire was genuinely afraid of another species. Not concerned, not worried, afraid, because the humans had shown them something terrifying, that all their military might, all their technology, all their pride meant nothing against an enemy who was willing to be more brutal than they were. The first counselor finally silenced the chamber. General Drakes, your recommendation. Withdraw from all slave-taking operations immediately. Free any species we currently hold in bondage. Issue a formal apology to the Aldrine, and pray that the humans never decide to come back. That is cowardice, one of the counselors spat. Drakes turned to look at him. No, counselor, that is survival. The humans told me something before they released us. They said this was mercy. This was them being gentle. I believe them. Because if they wanted to destroy us, we would already be gone. What about our honor? What about the Empire's reputation? Drakes laughed. It was a bitter sound. Our honor died when we started enslaving children. Our reputation died when we lost to humans in less than a day. What we have now is a choice. Learn from this, change, or wait for the humans to come back and finish what they started. The council deliberated for 3 days. During that time, the data packets from the humans spread across the galactic network. Every species saw what the Krethians did on the Aldrine homeworld. Every species saw how the humans responded. The reactions were mixed. Some species praised the humans. Finally, someone willing to stand up to oppressors. Someone willing to actually help instead of just talking about it. Other species condemned them. Too violent. Too willing to use force. Too dangerous to have running around the galaxy unchecked. But everyone agreed on one thing. Humanity was now a major power, whether the galaxy liked it or not. Seeker Quarren stood before the Galactic Council delivering his report. He described the battle, the invasion, the treatment of prisoners, the whole thing. The Council listened in stunned silence. Your recommendation, Seeker, the Council chair asked. Quarren took a deep breath. We should formally invite humanity to join the Galactic Council. Give them a voice. Give them oversight. Integrate them into our structures before they decide they do not need us at all. The proposal failed. Badly. Most species were too afraid of what humanity might do with official authority. Others just could not stomach the idea of rewarding violence with political power. A few quietly admitted they were terrified of what humanity might demand if they had a seat at the table. So humanity remained outside the system, independent, uncontrolled, answerable to no one but themselves. Brevin received a message from Admiral Hayes a week after the humans departed. It was simple and direct. 3 other civilizations have asked for our help, 3 more species being oppressed by stronger neighbors. We are reviewing their requests. If we intervene, it will not be quiet, it will not be clean, but it will be effective. Be well, counselor. You are free now. Stay that way. Brevin stood in his office, looking out at the Aldrine capital. The city was healing. Children were back with their families. The labor camps were being torn down. The Krethian occupation was already becoming history. But the fear remained. Not fear of the Krethians returning. Fear of what the humans had become. Fear of what it meant that the galaxy now had a species willing to kill for justice. Willing to break every rule to protect the innocent. High Merchant Tallies found him there. We owe them everything, the old merchant said quietly. I know, Brevin replied. That is what scares me. They saved us. They destroyed for us. There is a difference. They killed thousands, humiliated an empire, threatened the galactic order, all to free us. I am grateful, but I am also terrified of what happens when they decide someone else needs freeing. Tallies nodded slowly. We asked for help. We got salvation. Now we live with the consequences. Below them, Aldrine children played in streets they could not walk freely in just weeks before. They laughed. They ran. They were safe. Because humans made them safe. Because humans were willing to do what no one else would. The galaxy would never be the same. Dr. Raymond Foster sat alone in the Unforgiving's medical bay, staring at a datapad. The casualty report from the Aldrine operation. Human casualties, 3 dead, 17 wounded. Krethian casualties, 1,943 dead, 13,000 and change captured. Aldrine casualties, 0. 0. They had liberated an entire planet and not a single Aldrine died in the fighting. It should have made him proud. Instead, it made him feel empty. He had seen the Krethian wounded during processing, seen the fear in their eyes, the confusion. They had been taught that conquest was their right, that weaker species existed to serve them. Then humanity showed up and shattered that worldview in less than a day. Some of them were still in shock. Some were angry. Some just looked broken. Foster had treated them all the same, professionally, efficiently, with the minimum care required to keep them alive for transport. No more, no less. He remembered his oath. First, do no harm. But where did that oath stand when the patient was someone who enslaved children? A knock on the doorframe. Lieutenant Yuki Tanaka stood there looking uncertain. "May I come in, doctor?" Foster gestured to a chair. Yuki sat down. She had that look pilots got after combat, the strange combination of adrenaline come-down and delayed stress. Foster had seen it 1,000 times. "How many did you kill?" he asked quietly. She blinked. "What?" "In the battle, how many ships did you personally destroy?" Yuki looked down at her hands. 4 confirmed. Maybe 2 assists. I do not know how many Krethians were on each ship. Maybe 20, 30, so probably over 100 total. "And how do you feel about that?" She was quiet for a long moment. "I feel like I did my job, like I protected people who needed protecting. The Krethians had a choice. They chose to enslave the Aldrine. We just made them pay for that choice." Foster nodded. "That is what I keep telling myself too. But I cannot stop thinking about what we are becoming. The galaxy has rules about war, about prisoners, about proportional response. We ignored all of them. We showed up and we killed anyone who got in our way. We are not peacekeepers. We are not even soldiers. We are executioners." Yuki stood up, walked to the viewport, looked out at the stars. "My grandmother was in the camps, the corporate wars before the unification. She told me stories about what they did to prisoners, how they used them, worked them to death. When the reform forces finally liberated the camps, do you know what the prisoners said?" "What?" "They wished their liberators had been crueler, faster. They wished someone had come sooner and not worried so much about doing it the right way, because the right way took years, and thousands died while people debated the proper protocols. That does not make what we did right." "No," Yuki agreed, "but it does not make it wrong either. We saved people, real people with real lives. The Aldrine are free because we were willing to be what the galaxy needed, not what it wanted, what it needed." She left. Foster sat there alone again, thinking about what she said, thinking about the Aldrine children he saw in the reports, thinking about the Krethian soldiers he patched up just enough to survive the trip home. 3 days later, the messages started arriving. Not official transmissions, just data packets routed through anonymous relays, from species across the galaxy, species with their own oppressors, their own tyrants, their own desperate situations. Admiral Hayes called a meeting of senior staff. They gathered in the briefing room. Hayes brought up the messages on the main display. 23 requests for help from 19 different species. Some were being conquered, some were enslaved, some were being exterminated. All of them had the same basic message. "The Council will not help, please. You are our only hope." Hayes looked around the room. Opinions. Colonel Reeves spoke first. "We help them, all of them. That is what we do. That is what humans do." "We cannot save everyone," Foster said quietly. "We are one fleet. The galaxy is huge. We will burn out trying." "Then we prioritize," Reeves shot back. "Worst cases first. Active genocides, systematic slavery. We do what we can." Hayes held up a hand. "The question is not whether we can help. The question is whether we should. If we do this, if we become the galaxy's emergency response team, we change the fundamental balance of power. We make enemies of every empire that relies on force to maintain control. We put a target on Earth." "Better a target than a coward," Reeves muttered. Lieutenant Harris spoke up. "Admiral, we already changed the balance. The moment we destroyed the Krethian fleet, we announced to the galaxy that humans are players now. These requests are coming because species see us as the only ones willing to act. If we refuse, if we go home and pretend this never happened, then we become just another power that talks but does not help. Hayes looked at Foster. Doctor, you have been quiet. What do you think? Foster took a deep breath. I think we are going to do this no matter what I say. I think Colonel Reeves is right. Helping is what humans do. But I also think we need rules, guidelines, some kind of framework so we do not become the very thing we are fighting against. Such as, we only intervene when asked. We do not impose our will on anyone. We do not occupy. We do not conquer. We liberate and we leave. And we always try to minimize casualties. Hayes nodded slowly. I can work with that. She brought up a star map, showed 3 systems highlighted in red. These are the worst cases. The Venturi are being systematically exterminated by the Hask Empire. Genocide in progress. 2 million dead so far. The Delmer are enslaved by the Koreth Dominion. 500 years of bondage. And the Prin are being invaded by the Zelkoth Confederacy right now. Active conquest. We cannot hit all 3 at once, Harris said. We do not have the resources. Then we pick one, Hayes said. Vote. Which one do we help first? The vote was unanimous. The Venturi, because genocide could not wait, because every day they delayed meant more deaths, because humans had a long, ugly history with genocide and they had sworn it would never happen again. Not to them, not to anyone they could save. Hayes transmitted a message to the Venturi resistance. 3 words, we are coming. The fleet jumped to faster than light travel. 3 weeks to the Venturi homeworld. 3 weeks to prepare. 3 weeks to plan an assault against an empire that had been slaughtering an entire species for sport. Foster spent those weeks in the medical bay, preparing, stocking supplies, training his staff, trying to prepare himself for what was coming, because the Hask Empire was not like the Krethians. The Krethians were brutal occupiers. The Hask were genocidal maniacs who believed other species were vermin to be exterminated. This was going to be worse, much worse. Yuki found him again 2 days before they arrived. You doing okay, Doc? Foster laughed. It sounded hollow. I am preparing to patch up soldiers who are about to fight a war against genocidal aliens. Define okay. Fair point. She sat down. Can I ask you something? Sure. Do you think we are the good guys? Foster looked at her for a long moment. I think we are people trying to do good things in terrible ways. I think we make hard choices that keep us up at night. I think we save lives by taking lives, and I am not sure how to balance that equation. But yeah, I think we are the good guys, because the bad guys would not be asking these questions. The unforgiving dropped out of faster than light at the edge of the Venturi system. Sensors immediately lit up. Hask warships everywhere. Orbital bombardment platforms around the Venturi homeworld. Active firing solutions being calculated and executed. They were watching a genocide in real time. Hayes stood on the bridge, looked at her crew, looked at the tactical display, thought about all the reasons they should turn around, all the reasons this was a bad idea, all the ways this could go wrong. Then she thought about 2 million dead Venturi, thought about the ones still alive, hiding in bunkers and caves while the Hask destroyed their cities, thought about what it meant to be human, to see someone suffering and actually help instead of just sending thoughts and prayers. All ships, she said quietly, battle stations, weapons free, show the Hask what happens when they commit genocide. The human fleet accelerated toward the Hask blockade, every ship running hot, every weapon armed, every crew member ready to fight for people they had never met, for a species they barely knew, because it was the right thing to do. Because humans remembered what it was like to be the oppressed, to be the victims, to pray for someone, anyone to help. And because humans had decided, somewhere along the way, that if the galaxy would not help the helpless, then humanity would. No matter the cost, no matter the consequences, no matter what it did to their souls. The first human missiles launched, and another empire learned that mercy was a privilege Earth no longer granted to monsters. 6 months after the Aldrine liberation, Admiral Patricia Hayes stood in her quarters aboard the Unforgiving, looking at a wall covered in data. Mission reports, casualty lists, requests for help. The wall had grown. 3 successful interventions: Aldrine, Venturi, Delmer. 3 species freed from oppression. 18,000 enemy combatants killed. 214 human casualties. And 47 new requests for help waiting in her inbox. She heard the door open behind her. Did not turn around. She knew who it was. Colonel Reeves was the only one who entered without knocking anymore. "We cannot do this forever," he said quietly. "I know. The crew is exhausted. We have been in combat operations for half a year straight. People need rest, need to see their families, need to remember what normal feels like." Hayes finally turned to face him. "Do you want to go home, David?" Reeves shook his head. "No, but I want to know what we are doing. Are we a military fleet, a rescue organization, galactic vigilantes? Because right now we are all 3 and it is tearing us apart." Hayes gestured to a chair. Reeves sat. She pulled up a file on her datapad. "This came in yesterday. The Prin homeworld. We liberated them from the Zelkoth Confederacy 2 months ago. They are asking us to come back." "Why did the Zelkoth return?" "No. The Prin are asking us to help them rebuild their government, to provide security, to essentially occupy their world until they can stand on their own again." She paused. "They want us to become what we fight against, conquerors who claim to be liberators." "And what did you tell them?" "That we would send engineers to help with infrastructure, medical supplies, educational resources, but not soldiers, not occupation forces. We freed them. Now they have to build their own future." "How did they take that?" Hayes smiled sadly. "They were disappointed, scared. They wanted us to stay and protect them from every threat, from themselves. They wanted us to be their guardian angels, permanently." "Humans are not angels." "No," Hayes agreed. "We are not. We are just people trying to do the right thing in a galaxy that mostly does not care about right and wrong. And I'm starting to think that is not sustainable." Reeves leaned forward. "So what do we do?" "We go home, not forever, but long enough to rest, long enough to think, long enough to figure out if we want to keep doing this and what it means if we do." "And the requests for help?" Hayes looked at the wall of data again. "We forward them to Earth Command. Let the politicians decide. Let them form committees and debate the ethics and right policies. We are soldiers. We fight battles. We should not be making decisions about galactic intervention policy." 3 days later, the fleet jumped to faster than light, heading for Earth, heading home. Hayes stood on the bridge and watched the stars stretch into lines. Behind them, 3 liberated worlds tried to find their way forward. Ahead, Earth waited with questions she did not have answers for. Dr. Foster found her before they arrived. He looked different, older, tired. He had seen too much death, caused too much healing. The contradiction was wearing on him. "Admiral," he said, "I am resigning my commission when we get home." Hayes nodded. She had expected this. "You did good work, Raymond." "I killed people by saving them. Every Krethian soldier I patched up went home to warn his empire. Every Hask officer I kept alive became a witness to their defeat. I turned medicine into a weapon, and I do not know how to live with that." "You saved lives too. Human lives, Aldrin lives, Venturi lives." "I know. That is the only reason I can still sleep at night. But I need to step away. Find something that does not require me to calculate the value of one life against another." Hayes extended her hand. "Thank you for your service, Doctor. You helped more than you know." Foster shook it. Then he asked the question she had been avoiding. "Do you think we did the right thing?" Hayes looked out at the stars again. "I think we did what we thought was right at the time. Whether history judges us as heroes or monsters, I honestly do not know. We killed thousands, freed millions, terrified empires, gave hope to the hopeless. I think the truth is somewhere in the middle. We are neither saviors nor villains. We are humans, flawed, violent, capable of both great cruelty and great compassion. And we did what humans do. We saw suffering and we tried to stop it. Foster nodded. I can live with that answer. Earth grew larger in the viewports. Home, the planet that birthed humanity, the world that survived nuclear wars, climate disasters, corporate dictatorships, and a dozen other near apocalypses. The world that learned, eventually, that might did not make right. That power demanded responsibility. That freedom was worth fighting for, even when the fight was ugly. The fleet entered orbit. Standard greetings from traffic control. Hayes responded automatically. Then came a different transmission. Priority channel, Earth Defense Command. This is Fleet Admiral Wilson. Well done, Patricia. Come home. Hayes allowed herself a small smile. Yes, sir, we are coming in. The Unforgiving docked at the main orbital facility. Hayes walked down the ramp to a crowd of reporters, politicians, and military brass. Everyone wanted answers. Everyone had opinions. Everyone thought they knew what humanity should do next. She ignored them all, walked straight to the debriefing room, sat down across from a panel of admirals and civilian leaders. They asked their questions. She gave her answers, no embellishment, no justification, just the facts. We responded to a distress call. We liberated 3 species. We made enemies of multiple empires. We established humanity as a major military power whether we wanted to be or not. The questions went on for hours. Finally, the Secretary of Defense asked the one that mattered, Admiral Hayes, would you do it again? Hayes thought about Counselor Brevin's desperate message, thought about Aldrine children in labor camps, thought about Venturi families hiding from orbital bombardment, thought about the Delmer seeing sunlight for the first time in generations. Yes, she said simply, I would do it again, not because I enjoyed it, not because I think we are better than anyone else, but because someone has to stand up for the people who cannot stand up for themselves. If that someone is us, then so be it. The panel deliberated for 2 days. Then they released their decision. The Earth Defense Fleet would continue to respond to legitimate requests for humanitarian intervention, but with new protocols, new oversight, new rules of engagement designed to minimize casualties and prevent mission creep. They were trying to institutionalize compassion, trying to build a framework for being the galaxy's protector without becoming its tyrant. Hayes read the new directives and laughed. They were going to try to make war ethical, make violence noble, make killing for good reasons somehow different from killing for bad ones. Good luck with that. Yuki Tanaka found her in a bar near the spaceport. The pilot looked good, rested, happy. She had reconnected with her family, remembered what it felt like to be normal. Are you coming back? Yuki asked, when they formed the new intervention fleet. Hayes sipped her drink. I do not know. Part of me wants to retire, teach at the academy, write my memoirs, pretend I can be a normal person again. But another part knows there are more messages coming, more species asking for help, more situations where someone needs to make the hard call. You did not answer my question. Hayes smiled. Yes, I am coming back, because someone has to, and I would rather it be someone who understands the cost, who does not see it as a glorious crusade but as a necessary evil, who will lose sleep over every decision. Yuki raised her glass. To necessary evils then. To mercy, Hayes corrected, however harsh it has to be. They drank. Outside, Earth turned peacefully in the void. Above it, construction crews were already building new ships, bigger fleets, better weapons, preparing for the day when another species called for help and Earth answered. In the Aldrine capital, Brevin received a transmission from Earth, just a simple message. We are home. We are resting, but we are listening. If you need us, call, we will come. Brevin showed it to High Merchant Tallies. The old merchant read it and sighed. We created something dangerous, he said quietly. We asked for salvation and we got warriors. What happens when those warriors decide they know better than the people they are saving? Brevin thought about Admiral Hayes, about Colonel Reeves, about Dr. Foster and Lieutenant Tanaka, about humans who killed for justice and wept for the people they could not save, about a species that understood both cruelty and compassion because they had lived both. I think, Brevin said slowly, we hope that they stay human, that they keep questioning themselves, keep doubting, keep struggling with the moral weight of what they do. Because the moment they stop caring about the cost, the moment they become certain they are right, that is when they stop being saviors and start being conquerors. Across the galaxy, species watched and waited, some with hope, some with fear, some with calculation. The humans had shown they were strong, willing to fight, willing to kill, but also willing to help, willing to risk themselves for strangers. The question was not whether humans would intervene again. Everyone knew they would. The question was what that intervention would cost, both for the ones being saved and for the ones doing the saving. Admiral Hayes stood on the observation deck of her new flagship. The ship was called Redemption. She appreciated the irony. Below, Earth turned in eternal daylight. Above, the stars waited. Somewhere out there, people were suffering. Empires were oppressing. Tyrants were destroying. And somewhere out there, another message would come. Another plea for help. Another desperate species hoping that someone, anyone, would care enough to act. Hayes would answer that call, because that was what humans did. They saw injustice and they fought it. They saw suffering and they tried to stop it. They were not perfect. They were not gentle. They were not even always right. But they were there. When the galaxy cried out for help, when the council debated and delayed, when hope seemed lost, humans answered. And mercy, for those who showed none, remained the last thing they saw before the reckoning came.